How's everybody? How's everyone doing tonight? Yo, yo, yo. All right, guys. So I got two guests tonight. The guys from Reptilinks are going to be coming on talking about what's up.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Just trying to get your brother in here.
I'm just on a phone, so I don't have all the fancy gadgets.
Oh,
Hopefully,
yeah,
you can
no,
see me all right.
it's all good. We're all on phones. So I've tried to. Instagram's like the only platform that you have to do mobilely still, like
Uh,
YouTube and Facebook Live and all that. You can do from a laptop or a desktop, but unfortunately, Instagram you still have to do it from your phone. Trying to get Tyler in here. Thanks for coming on tonight, though. I was just telling everybody, so we're going to be going over when Reptilink started and why, and we'll be going over some of the products that they have, how they're made, stuff like that, and because essentially, I was talking to your brother, you guys really kind of carry something for any reptile or all of reptiles, right? Essentially, they can use your product somehow for almost any reptile.
I would say most commonly kept reptiles for sure, and then we've been able to branch out to have a food source for a lot of the animals that maybe aren't necessarily prominent in the reptile community. So a lot of the insular boas and children's pythons, a lot of this odds and ends stuff that's recently become popular. We really had a play in bringing some of those animals to the tables at shows, just because now people have a available food source for them. But yeah, our biggest, I'd say our most mainstream animals that we feed are bearded dragons, a lot of different snakes that are commonly kept. Um, one of the animals that we get a lot of inquiries about that we don't do a lot of work with are the ball pythons, because they're very picky as far as transitioning them to new food sources. But absolutely, we feed. There's pretty much not anything that people don't keep that we don't have products that the people find value in. So.
Because it's not just links, right? You guys have like scent juices and other stuff like that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We do most of what we do is tied links, and then, as you mentioned, yeah, we have other products. Really, our main sellers there are like our micro and mini links. The micros are as small as a half a gram, so they'd be like maybe even smaller than the smallest pinky mouse that you could find. And then up from there, we do minis, and those would be like a larger pinky size. And then we just launched the mini pluses, which are those would be like more of like a fuzzy size mouse equivalent. So we don't launch new products, by the way, unless we have a high demand for them. Intuitively, it makes sense. We don't want to put in time to making things that aren't people aren't going to find value in. But that's a prime example of a product that we've had a ton of people requesting over the years. So once we get so many people that request something, then if it makes sense, we'll make it. So another product that we also launched fairly recently would be we make the frog micros and minis. Now we
Yeah.
make the mini pluses, which are fuzzy size, which fills that void between the next size up, which is a tied link, and that is the 8 to 12 gram size. So we have pure frog-based links all the way from a half gram all the way up to 12 grams and kind of everywhere in between.
Nice. Yeah, and if you guys have Ackie monitors, you got to try these. The frog links, my Akkie's just tear them up. The tegus and the Ackies love that stuff. What is the shelf life of the lynx? So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Tyler, do you want to jump in on that? Oh, I
Yeah,
just
sure.
wanted to mention too. You mentioned Aki's like, I've heard that across the board for years, particularly with the frog. So that's a good example. Like, so the thing that differentiates us from a lot of other companies that make reptile food is, I'm not as much into reptiles as I used to be, but we're a family-run business. Obviously, Tyler here, we're close knit. We've all been into reptiles since we were little kids, and so it's great because when we're making a product, we're making it for a specific animal. So when we get the frog micros out there, or minis, or the other sizes now, we have a bunch of people that come back and say, "Hey, my mini Australian monitors go nuts for the frog." Well, then we know, all right, that's something that's very valuable to people. So we make it accordingly. And it's not like we have stuff that's just like packaged for, oh, this whole gamut of reptiles will eat this. Like we know exactly what we're making this stuff for and how it's accepted. So it's pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, so shelf life, I mean, it's basically the same as any other freezer stored meat. It can stay in the freezer indefinitely for years. The main trick is just preventing freezer burn like you would with anything else. So once you open a vacuum seal pack, we recommend that you roll it in a Ziploc bag, put that bag inside of a Tupperware type container in the freezer. And if you have some desiccant packs, you can always put those in there with it just to soak up any moisture. So as long as you have a good freezer that doesn't thaw and freeze too often, and it stays cold and dry, then you're good to go for years. So
Nice. And royalty dragons, the ones that I use for the bearded dragons are the omnivore mix. I think it's like a 25 or something.
mm-hmm.
25 slash, I forget the other number, but it's the omnivore mix, and they come in a nice, like pinky size link. I like to, it's perfect for your bearded dragons. If a nice little treat. And if you're not feeding pinkies or pinkies aren't relatively available for you and you're looking for something nice to treat your bearded dragon, they're definitely great. I wouldn't go too heavy because, a lot of people like to overfeed their bearded dragons. We've had this huge, huge conversation, and some of these people they'll feed a link every day and that dragon will be ginormous.
Yeah.
So when did you guys start Reptilinks? When did it? Because I believe, like I saw you guys on like Snake Discovery's YouTube like a year or two ago, and then that's kind of how I jumped on and was following you guys from there.
Yep. We actually founded in 2017, I believe. We're
15.
15, sorry, 15. Yeah, we're going on 8 years now.
Sheesh.
Yeah. So
It's been a roller coaster.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, kind of your normal startup where we're just, initially got started. I mean, Nick can tell the story of how he developed the product, but yeah, we've been in business 8 years and we've basically doubled in size every year since then. So it's just kind of grown from a small, backyard operation to, we have a pretty large facility now and quite a few employees, and we're humming on our sausage stuffers like 6-7 days a week, so it's pretty intense.
See if I can get a picture. There's part of one right there behind me. That's all you get, people. That's all you get.
So what was the first product you guys launched? I assume you guys had more than one, but what was like the first one that you made?
I think the venison links were the first ones we made. That was back when Nick was basically just looking for alternative food sources he has a pretty big snake facility for feeding his snakes, and he just sort of experimented with different things. And there's a surplus of venison in Michigan at the time. And so Nick started tying links out of those. And I remember him calling me and just saying, like, this is incredible. My snakes are just thriving on this stuff. They're so much healthier, and they're eggs are better with you know, less calcium windows, and he was just going on and on about it, and just how amazing his animals were doing on it. So I was like, I think you're onto something, and so we sort of started branching out from there. I don't know if you want to
What
add
he means
anything,
to
Nick.
say is he got me to sell this stuff to the public. It's all his fault. It's all his fault.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, the original products that we made were rabbit, and then we mixed rabbit and venison to lean the initial blends out, and we also did chicken, and then we would mix those to get the different levels of nutrition as far as mostly what fat levels and protein levels people needed for their application. But we were very limited. Although the vessel that we created was awesome and it worked wonderfully, and I actually fed this to my animals out of necessity because I wanted to be able to control the nutritional values a lot more and be able to customize their diet. So I'm kind of like, I guess, old school now, but I had a very large collection of mostly pythons, and you know, there's only certain sizes depending on the cycle that they're in, whether you're raising juveniles or you're prepping females for breeding season and to lay, or if you're rebounding females, or for instance, if you want to feed a male a meal to where it's going to give them the energy to breed and be successful, but you don't want them going into a shed and you want them being slowed down and losing drive on the female that they're paired with. That's kind of, it got there very quickly for me when I realized that the hypothesis I had was this stuff would work great. When I saw that it did, and I started formulating how I was going to adjust all this stuff and work it into my breeding programs, then that's kind of when it was like, all right. And that's probably the conversation Tyler was referring to. Like, it was kind of actually mind blowing within about 2 to 3 weeks after feeding the original prototypes of the product to the animals. When you pick them up, they're just more alert. Within 3 weeks to a month, 2 months, you had an animal that before maybe felt like they were healthy, obviously eating rodents, and you know, for the larger animals, it was rabbits and everything else that's commonly fed. But you could, when you picked up the pythons, for instance, you could feel the difference in their physique. They were like more muscular, they were more active, more alert, and that's probably why I talked to Tyler, because I'm like, am I seeing this stuff? Am I partial to this little invention that I came up with or whatever? And now the rest is kind of history, because there's, you know, hundreds of thousands of people throughout the U.S. that see it for themselves, and then people in many other countries as well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I mean, you know, and since then you've come up with other products and actually allowed people to captive breed other animals now that they have some type of diet for them, correct?
Yeah, there's like I mentioned, a lot of the insular boas, a lot of the pygmy pythons and things. People had food that they would readily accept, and that was available to them. Um, I stumbled across. Now I'm not on social media. I'm taking a break, so that's how lucky everybody is now. Like I've been off the grid for a while. It's fun though to be, you know, back on and talk reptiles. But there, I stumbled across something where it was a dragon snake care sheet, and it, you know, listed on there as like acceptable foods, and Reptilinks was on there, and that put a smile on my face, because, you know,
That's like the
those
hardest
animals
snake to
are
take care
very
of.
tough to get. What's that?
That's like the hardest snake to take care of. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I've
Right.
ever
Right,
seen
and
one
part of the
captive.
reason it is because you have to figure out what to feed it, and then once you figure out that it needs to eat amphibians, or, you know, they can have idiosyncrasies between individuals within the species too. They might like something else better. So when you have options, then the snakes don't become as difficult to take care of, and you can get them established and get closer to, you know, breeding and having fecundity. So that was one that really stuck out with me recently. That was kind of cool to see. Like the elephant trunks, for instance. We've had many customers that feed Reptilinks as a staple. They feed fish and a lot of other things. We're going to be adding some fish blends eventually too. So I'm trying to think of what else. There's many others, but I kind of been
Yeah, I
out of the
mean,
game of keeping up with everything.
yeah, I mean the most common email we get is from hognose snake owners who say, you know, thanks so much. My snake hasn't eaten in 6 months, and it finally took its first meal, or it started eating again because, you know, they just go nuts for the frogs generally. So we get probably the most emails about that. Um,
Yeah,
um,
as far as popular animals go, and as far as popular specialist species go, in the case of amphibian specialists or toad specialists like the Western hognose, that's our most popular by far. I mean, you know, you could get during the busy months and things like that, you could get 20 calls a day, 20 emails, and so we really take the time to walk people through and get their animals established when they've just gone into these slumps. And we try to educate like crazy too, because, well, when we started this out, we really catered to veteran breeders and people that were highly knowledgeable with reptiles. And then we still have all those people, but now like the masses of people that are keeping the animals that are, I guess, quote unquote, mainstream, like the hognose are now. A lot of them don't even know that there's other options when they acquire these animals originally, that, that I can feed it frogs instead of mice or something, because, that's the culture of reptile keeping. I don't know. I think it's similar in other countries as well, but people just think, oh, snakes eat mice. Well, no, that's not the
Oh yeah,
case. Actually, most
100%.
species of snakes in the world don't eat rodents. And so you're imposing this diet on them that they either refuse completely and then they end up perishing, or it causes them problems, or they intermittently fast and all that. So yeah, it's a good feeling to be able to save, like we probably saved like thousands and thousands of hatchling hognose snakes all the way up to adults that just tend to, because they're like a ball python where they just fast super hard, especially when it comes to breeding, or if people don't have their temperatures just right with them. So yeah, the hognose alone keep us very busy.
I think that's honestly where I had seen you guys, or where Reptilinks first came in, was Snake Discovery was trying to get their hognose snake to eat, and one of their last resorts was some Reptilinks, and they were ecstatic when it was eating them. And it's
mhm.
funny because like now you see it, and there's like a million memes, right, where you just see a little snake with like a sausage in its mouth, and people are like, what the hell? Like, I know when I had made a video of me feeding them, oh my god, my DMs were blowing up, like, what did you just feed your bearded dragons? And I was like,
Mhm.
man, you got to check these things out. Like,
Yeah,
they're cool because they make great videos. I'll
yeah,
tell you that. It's great
yeah,
video content. People are like, what the fuck? Did he just
yeah.
feed him a hot dog?
And actually, in the very beginning, I mean, we really got our foot in the door with on Facebook originally with these Tagoo forums, and you know, we have Tagoos, and Nick posted a video of a Tagoo eating a Reptilink, and initially we got banned from the forum because they said, "Oh, you're feeding it an unhealthy hot dog," and so we had to like. It was really frustrating in the beginning trying to just educate everyone what we were trying to do, because people were so set on, no, if you have a Tagoo, it needs to feed on a mouse or a rat, and it's like, it was just crazy how close-minded sometimes people were in the beginning. And I mean, that's changed a lot over the years, but when we were establishing ourselves, that we had to, educate and fight pretty hard to kind of prove what we were doing was superior to a lot of the feeding that was happening. So yeah.
That's a funny story because I kind of did that on purpose. I was like, oh man, I got to do this. And so what I did was I made some scrambled eggs and I put them next to the link, so it looked like two like little Smokies, or like two Bob Evans sausages that come in the plastic covered packs or whatever. And I did it once and got some kind of weird feedback. So I was like, you know what? It's time people know like the research and the dedication and everything behind this. So I took a negative and turned it into a positive. So when I posted that, I knew that people were going to swarm and try to be authorities and say, no, you can't feed tegus, these salty sausages that are filled with fat and blah, blah, blah for humans. And that's exactly what happened. And I didn't touch the thread for like a month. I remember I was just grinding my teeth the whole time. Before you knew it, I think there was like 800 comments or something, wasn't there, Tyler? Before
Yes.
I jumped on and said, listen, guys, this is what this stuff is. So we took all the negative feedback and we let everybody get on there and talk all the smack that people talk. And then within a month later, didn't we have, I think there was every person on that forum was ordering Reptilinks.
Yeah, we had a lot of people from that forum.
Yeah. So
Once they gave it a try, it just snowballed because when it's a perfect food for tegu. I mean, you have fruits and veggies blended together with the protein sources they need and the bones and everything else, the whole animal ground. And so it's like superfood for tegus. They digest it really well. Their sheds are amazing. And so that's really, we basically don't advertise. I mean, the product is basically word of mouth of just people's testimonials to one another. So it didn't take too long before a couple of people, branched out and said they'd give it a try. And then, eventually it's a staple for a lot of people, a lot of people's tegus. So
look, Pip, he wants to be famous back there. You see him? Oh, there he is. Coming up. This dog right here, his name's Pip. Pip, Pip, Pip. Come here. He eats Reptilinks every day of his life.
Yeah.
And
That's a lucky dog.
He is the beastliest, most healthy dog you'll ever see. Come on, get up here.
Yeah, no, people that do have tegus should definitely try Reptilinks. I think it's a great way to feed them. I see a lot of people just like throw ground turkey on a plate or something, and they make a mess of it. It's much easier for them to eat the Reptilinks, and essentially you're giving them something nice and high in protein. Just like the ground turkey or chicken that you're just throwing on a plate.
And
it's much easier for them to get that.
Yeah, and it's quite a bit healthier too because we grind the whole animal, so you have all the connective tissue and organs and bone and everything, which is really important for getting the proper calcium to phosphorus ratios for reptiles. So if you're just buying the meat itself from the store, you're kind of depriving the benefit of feeding a whole prey, and it's hard to buy whole prey and to grind it yourself at home because we have a lot of equipment to deal with the bone and connective tissue and stuff. It's quite a process in order to homogenize that and get it into a link. So yeah, it's a little bit different than making your own meatballs at home.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you touched on important. You can't discount that though. If you have a portion where the animal has to swallow it whole, for instance, tegus, a lot of varanid, lizards and things, they tend to thrash and play with their food, especially if they're not super, super hungry. So they scatter the food all about, which you have to clean up for one, or it's going to attract a lot of fruit flies and flesh flies and things like that. But also you're wasting food. So like all this work that you put into it, they're only consuming a portion of it. With the links, it works out great because they just slide right down the hatch. So when our customers order from us, they know, it's insane how in-depth some of them go with their feeding regimens, and they know exactly what they need to order to get them a certain amount of time because there is no wasted food. So what you invest in is not going to be scattered about on the glass or whatever.
And they have awesome information.
That's different with snakes, obviously.
Down to the grams.
Down to the gram, yeah. That's another thing too. Actually, Tyler convinced me to start this company and launch it to the public, but I fed this to my animals for like 8 or 10. I think it was 8 years or more before we launched to the public. But another reason that we started this whole thing is, I lost my train of thought there. What was I just saying before that?
Out of the grams.
Oh yes, thank you. So, Rodent Pro I used to order from, and I spent thousands and thousands of dollars with this company, and they were great, and they had very good customer service. But, and not to discount any other businesses, like I know everybody does their own thing. I relied on them for many, many years for my breeding stock. But the problem with a lot of rodent breeders is they have a gram weight disparity when you order. So it'll be like, so you order small rats, for instance, or whatever grams, like, or rat pups. It's like 15 grams to 25 grams, or 25 grams to 35 grams. Well, you're 25 to 40 or whatever it is. That's a huge difference. If you get a bunch of animals shipped to you and you have this certain amount of animals you need to feed, if most, if not everything, is at the lower level of the gram weight, then that means you have to feed two of everything. Now, vice versa, it doesn't really happen, but say they have a surplus of something that's larger, well, that hurts you even worse because now you have a prey item that's too big to feed to your animals that you're raising up to breed. So that was a huge part of why we started this too, because we wanted people in the reptile communities to have a company that when they ordered, say, 40 lynx that weigh 10 grams each, that's what they get. They don't get 40 lynx that half of them weigh 5 grams and half of them weigh 10, or a quarter of them weigh 7 and some weigh 14 that are too big to feed the target animals. See, so that's what makes Reptilinks very special in that regard too, because what you're buying is what you're getting. If anything, it's going to be slightly overweight, but never under. We have a lot of control over our portioning, which does not come easy. I mean, it's kind of an art form to make the stuff that way. It's a completely different art form to teach people how to make it that
way. Someone was asking if they could feed Reptilinks to their bearded dragons. I said yes. We'll go over those links specifically.
Yeah, I saw somebody that jumped on there and mentioned the iguana links for their blackheads too. That's pretty cool that not to jump around, but I didn't want to.
No, we actually, I'll go back. Love your iguana links. That's all I feed my black-headed pythons, Woma pythons. Much more natural for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that would be an example of feeding animals. They're more of a specialist animal, or they're animals that feed on other reptiles, and they're feeding on prey sources that are lower in fat content. So that's really cool. The iguana, whenever we start new things like that, people are fairly hesitant. They don't trust it. But it's amazing how many people use the iguana now. It's great. It's just an unbelievable food. And then, yeah, as far as the bearded dragons go, when we first started out, people said you couldn't feed bearded dragons red meat or animal protein and this and that. And well, we kind of know now that couldn't be farther from the truth. The links that we make for the bearded dragons in particular are the 50-50. And that was the first one that we made that was geared towards what customers wanted. And what they wanted was a lean prey source, which was rabbit. And then we mixed it with half all reptile-friendly greens. And then once that became very popular and people are like blown away by the results, then we have customers that come to us and we essentially make a list. They said, well, we want the 50-50 with insects included in it as well. So that's what the 25-25-50 is. So the numbers could be a little confusing. On the 50-50s, it was 50% lean rabbit and 50% reptile-friendly greens. Now the 50-50 or the 25-25-50 is 25% insects, 25% greens, and 50% rabbit.
Other way around, but yeah, 25% rabbit and 50% greens.
Or yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. And I don't know, Nick, what your feeding schedule has been with your beardies, but I think generally people feed 2 links a week. Seems to be.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. Like you had mentioned earlier, they feed them as a treat, and absolutely. And you definitely
So
don't
the
want to
50-50
overfeed.
mix would be like more of the treat. I just wouldn't want people to go too heavy on proteins because
Yeah.
we've done I've gone back and forth with a bunch of bigger breeders and stuff, and a huge thing is bearded dragons in captivity really aren't active enough for as
Hmm.
much protein as most people are giving them, so they're kind of sitting there. And another thing is that a lot of people, if you their temperatures are low, right? So they're feeding a lot, they have low temperatures and an inactive bearded dragon, so now they're giving it a high source of protein constantly like that weekly.
Hmm.
And what's happening is you're getting a bunch of fat overweight bearded dragons, like
Hmm.
400 or 500 pounders, because they're like yes, 100% in the wild they would totally be knocking down little birds, other lizards, like plenty of stuff, right? But
Hmm.
they would also have a huge amount of enrichment, running around, being active. Most bearded dragon cages, and you can see in my background, are no longer than 4 feet long, and
Yep.
and a lot of them aren't taller than 2 feet tall. So and mine literally have nothing to climb on or really much, because then that just means more cleaning for me, right, at the end of the day. So I, as a breeder, I fight with the keeper a lot of not giving enough enrichment, and it's like, well, do you do we fight to have clean, healthy bearded dragons that have less enrichment, or more enrichment, and then I have more bills or problems because I'm not cleaning up feces enough on sticks or
Hmm.
shit like that. Um, so the 25-25-50 mix, if someone was feeding that more often, maybe even weekly, with their greens, and
Right.
then they were just not feeding insect protein throughout the week, like that was their only source of actual protein, 100% that would work, right? But people like to feed their bearded dragons a lot because they like to see them eat. So they're going to be
Hmm.
feeding them roaches, they're going to be feeding them crickets and super worms, and then they're going to be like, oh yeah, I got Reptilinks, let me go feed them another Reptilink. So
Hmm.
it's not that yes, it's a great treat for most people because they're already feeding something, they already have a huge a source of protein for their bearded dragons. Now, if they were going to use this as a main source of protein, I would just caution most people to not feed too much other insect protein. And then on weeks that you're not going to feed your Reptilinks, to add your insect protein, because there is insect protein in the 25-25-50 mix
Hmm.
already. And then when you want, you're trying to give them some enrichment with crickets and super worms that are running around and stuff. Like if you were doing that week with the live insects, I just wouldn't throw on top of a Reptilink on top of that, because most people's bearded dragons are just not active enough.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Uh,
everything you said about bearded dragons, pretty much you can apply to all commonly kept reptiles.
Hmm.
They're generally, because we talk to thousands of people, that keep these animals on a regular basis. It can become overwhelming at times, but um, you recognize common trends across the board when you talk to so many people that keep them, and really, as a general rule, people have a tendency to keep their reptiles too cool because they're not in a reptile dedicated room, or they don't have the proper supplemental heating, whether that's lighting or belly heat or snakes. Bearded dragons, it's all the same kind of premise. If they're not hot enough, their metabolic rate isn't what it would be in their endemic environments. And then on top of that, they're forced to be sedentary because they're not hunting down their food as much. And like you said, they're constrained by, how much space they have to move around. So um, that's one of the things that I preach every day. Whether people are advanced keepers or not, I remind them the hotter the better. The more you can take your animals out, if you have an environment that's warm enough for them to get exercise, that's going to make the difference of how worried you need to be about what you're feeding your animals. Not that what you feed them is going to fix those other problems or make them non-existent, but if you do have an active hot lizard, for instance, you can feed it a lot more different things and not be so worried about it. It's the same with people, you know, like you always hear about people going to the gym or whatever. And it's like, well, how do you stay so thin and you eat like a horse, you know? It's like, well, because their metabolic rate is up. They're moving, you know, they're not a sedentary person compared to somebody that's sitting on the couch over the weekend and stuff. So, of course, that person that's, you know, eating maybe not so great healthy foods, but they're watching every football game every weekend, they're going to be that fat beardy. You know, the one that gets out to the gym and is active, they don't have to worry so much about what they eat. And it's kind of an anthropomorphized parallel there, but I think it's accurate because you can
Yeah,
apply
no,
that to most
100%.
animals.
So I'm a huge gym rat too, right? So I'm up at 3:50 every morning, and I'm to the gym at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And the guys that I work with, they're like, man, like you eat so much. Like how you're a little guy too. Like so I'm only 5'8", probably 185, 190 pounds on a good day, but I eat a lot, and I try to tell people that we're all different. We all have a different metabolism, and you have to learn what your metabolism is, just like you do with any reptile.
Yeah.
They're all gonna metabolize things different. Just like so my buddy recently hatched a bunch of Burmese pythons, and I had bought one, and I seen somebody else's, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like that thing looks like a yearling compared to mine. Like it's twice the size of mine. What am I doing wrong? I thought I was power feeding this thing because I was feeding it like twice a week, and I definitely wasn't giving it big enough prey, I guess, because this guy's was huge, right? Well, it probably is a higher growth rate with a higher metabolism, so it's going through its rats or its pups faster than mine. Maybe they keep theirs a little hotter, and that increases metabolism too. So somebody that works overnight compared to somebody that works during the day, those people, right there, that's going to change your metabolism. So it's the same thing with reptiles. Age is another thing. As you get older, you metabolize slower. Thankfully, I haven't gotten there yet, because with my eating habits, I'll be like 300 pounds. but when we become keepers, breeders, or anything with reptiles, it's the knowledge that you get by keeping them that is where you learn their diet or how they eat or how they react. Sometimes you'll see in certain months that it gets cooler and their metabolism slows down or they're not as hungry. So it's really up to us on that diet part, which you guys have done great with providing a great product to feed them. And then it's really up to us to keep an eye on their feeding habits. So
Yeah.
If anyone ever is like, oh yeah, I got an overweight bearded dragon because of Reptilinks, it's not because of Reptilinks, it's because you overfed. You weren't paying attention to stuff like this. Temperatures, number one, enclosure, stuff like that. So because I saw a couple of people were asking me, I had a conversation with Tracy from Phantom Dragons. She was like, oh, after I'd made that video, she's like, make sure that, like, you know, you let people know how you're using it, so that they're not just like, oh yeah, I can add Reptilinks to whatever I'm feeding right now. It's like, well, you would substitute it more or less of what you're using now with Reptilinks to try that out, guys. So if you're having, you know, picky animals, they have scent juices that you can throw on the links, I believe, right?
Correct.
Oh yeah, we forgot to touch on scents. We started out with frog because a lot of people had hognose that just wouldn't assimilate to the rodent-imposed diets. So what you do there is pre-wash your pinkies if you're dealing with hatchlings, if that's what you have readily available for them. That's 90% of the time, you know, people are trying to feed a baby hognose pinky mouse. So you'd pre-wash it, rinse it good, and then you would baste it in our frog. We call it juice to be cute. You know, frog juice sounds better than frog scent. Um, but that works wonderfully to, if you already say have a bag of 100 pinkies or 500 or whatever it is, how many animals you have, so those existing rodents that you bought don't go to waste. Or when you're transitioning to lynx, you could also boost the scent more with the scents, or you could also, if you wanted them to be eating something leaner or more natural to their diets that they would be getting in the endemic environment, you could use something similar to what you're feeding, like if it's mouse scent, or with ball pythons, you have African soft fur scent. If you're feeding a lot of the arboreal boas or something like that, we have a knoll. Like the only color-bred species I ever bred was Mexican black king snakes, and they went nuts over a knoll. So, you know, those snakes could be kind of tricky to get them to take their first couple meals. So you mix and match with all the scents we have and figure out what, you know, what they like. But we have gecko for a lot of the smaller snakes and things that eat some of the smaller lizards.
So do you guys put geckos in a juicer and just juice it?
Pretty much, yeah. It's like the same way you make grape wine.
Nice.
Yeah, we put it through a rendering process that's a little bit more complicated than that. We get a lot of people that try to figure out the secret recipe, but I got to take it to my grave. So, but yeah, in a nutshell, the scents that we sell, whether it's frog, anole, gecko, fish, we have quail, we have African soft fur. Am I missing any, Tyler?
I think that's all of them.
There's about 8 scents or so that we sell. They all are made from the animals, so they're all natural. They don't have any preservatives. And the way we get by that is what you do is they come frozen like all our other products. You partially freeze them, give the bottle, dispense it into the smallest cup possible that you can use for your application. Let it at least get up to room temperature or warmer under a desk light or something like that. And then you would baste the pre-washed prey type in that. And they're hugely successful. Now, we don't guarantee they always work. There could be user error. There could be many different variables that would affect, you know, the success people have. But as a general outcome with the scents, I mean, I don't know if you had to put a number on it. We never have. I'd say they have to be like 90% or higher success rates with pretty much all the scents that we offer. And a lot of that has to do with customer service too. You know, you have to teach people what they're doing wrong if they're not familiar with transitioning reptiles and things. So that has a lot to do with it as well.
Do you guys have like videos or anything, like application videos, or do they just call you guys and you're like, hey, this is how you do it, don't fuck it up?
Yeah, we do. Oh, brother. So that's the thing. I started videos on YouTube, and I did hands-on live. These are the feeding techniques. You know, I'd use a bunch of different types of animals, and there's only so much time in the day. So yeah, we have been doing a ton of stuff remotely and just describing the stuff in emails or over chats through our website or through in-depth conversations over the phone. And it's gotten to the point now where it's like, man, I got to get back on social media. I got to make videos.
Hey, you got brand ambassadors like me. All you got to do is reach out.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I need some scent videos, some whatever. We got this. We can make this happen for sure.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, and we do.
I think I need to travel around to people and just bring my toolbox, and then we just go to each person's collection and just do a whole tutorial. It'd be fun because you talk to so many people, but you don't get to meet them. I mean, it's different on social media. It was cool for me for quite a while, but I think I got burned out on it just because I had to talk to so many people. I know Tyler kind of felt the same way too. but it would be nice to bring it back to the roots where people met at shows. And how cool would that be to like set it up where people have all these target animals that they wanted, you know, and then we could film. And it'd be nice to visit with people. And that, because every day I wish I could teleport myself to someone's house or to their facility and work. And you know, it's how you wiggle the worm, right? Like once you've been doing this stuff for so long, you know you can pretty much get any animal to eat. You have the knowledge base, you have the tools in your toolbox, which we've developed over many, many years. But the only thing missing is that you can't like, you know, you can't transmigrate into that person's body and like have them move how you. It's like fishing or something, right? When you're feeding reptiles. So
Yeah, for
I don't know.
sure.
It'd just be cool to
You
set
can see
something like
someone
that up.
fishing. Like I have a buddy, right? He'll be right next to you, and he
Mm-hmm.
will catch fucking 30 fish, and
That's him.
That's me.
I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's
Like
him.
I'm
and then
just
you're
so
me.
stressed. They can feel it through the line that I'm just getting
Yeah.
pissed, and he's just over there fucking. They're hitting the bait
Yeah.
out of the before it even hits the water, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I can't even get this. I'm just getting all frustrated and mad.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It is. I mean, Nick's a great fisher, and it is similar to that when he's feeding the reptiles. He'll do these weird, you know, taps near the side of the head of the snake or something, and all of a sudden it strikes it, and you're like, how did you learn to do that? You know, it's just like really, it's like you're I don't know, yeah.
It's just from doing it for so long, you know. You just
Mhm.
like sport fishing for pike, for instance. Like I go with a guide. Oh, I got a head churn. That fish is good as caught. He's like, what are you talking about? Well, it's a snake. It's just like a python. They work on all the same principles. They have this hard wiring to tap into their feeding response. And even if they're not hungry or they know something's fake, if you override that system, then you can get the response. And it's like it's the same thing with a lot of pythons, and that was my specialty over the years. But yeah, it's just it's very frustrating even when you're with someone too, because they want to feed their new snake themselves with the tongs or whatever they're doing, and that for whatever reason they're just so close to getting that where it's not going to be a headache animal anymore. They get it to eat the new prey source, or maybe it's switched environments, so you're trying to feed it what it was feeding before already, and they're just almost there. It's like you're on the boat and you're almost jigging that thing right, but it's just not quite there, and you can't. The only way to teach that is just to, you know, to be there and literally like grab their hand and be like, no, this is the way. So
Let me hold it for you.
yeah.
Do we have
And
any
of course,
other
you
questions?
get shot down when you're trying to be cool. Like when you know, people like us that have a reputation for knowing what we're doing when it comes to feeding reptiles. Of course, you think you're all cool, and then you run into that one animal that makes you look like a fool.
Someone did ask, was it safe for baby beardies? Do you have like a different one, or is there? I'm assuming is there different sizes on the?
Right. Yeah, the
You can
smallest.
take that one, Tyler.
Yeah, the smallest bearded dragon blend we have is the 8 to 12 gram lynx. Some people do cut them, like if they're, especially if they're frozen, you can cut them and then thaw them, and they stay pretty well intact. It's a little bit harder to make that blend, and so when you're below the 8 to 12 gram lynx, they can't be tied. They're just too small, and so our micro and mini lynx are held together with an alginate casing. That's and we don't have I don't know if we've tried actually to put those in those smaller. They're kind of a pain to make in the micro and mini sizes, but
Well, they sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
yeah,
we have made them for that. Not in that particular blend, but you get more bang for your buck at the larger sizes, I think. So, like Tyler mentioned, you can further portion the links when they're frozen. You can like cut them into little pepperonis. So, yeah, I think the question they're asking, Ty, is that, you know, do we make different blends for smaller animals?
yeah.
We don't cater because we already have so many different blends that we have to make. It would just be smaller portions.
Mm-hmm.
Someone Someone said they got to get some for their monitors. Oh yeah. Also, I should have said this at the beginning. I hope no one ordered already, but you know, if you guys do put in an order, make sure you use code REDZONE at the end of your checkout. Okay, you get a $5 off your order.
Yeah, it looked like
And
there
they're
were
super
some
cool. So I
people.
believe it comes with 48 links. If you get the Omnivore, it's like it's a vacuum sealed bag with like 48 little links in it, and they're super easy to break apart even when they're frozen. That's kind of what I did. So I broke it apart, and then I vacuum sealed it with as many bearded dragons. So I did it. I had 16 at the time, so I resealed them in 16s so I could just defrost one, and then I knew that was like the meal for everybody that night, right? So,
Right.
With my line of work, when I don't know necessarily when I'm gonna be home, and sometimes it might be super late at night, the Reptilinks were super easy because I could just ask my wife to pull them out of the freezer. When I got home, I could give everyone a link. I knew everyone got fed. Because I literally watched it, so I didn't have to sit there and wait for bugs to be eaten, and then hope that like if they didn't eat, then I'd have to pull the bugs out, so I didn't have bugs all over my room, shit like that. So,
Yeah.
It definitely simplified the feeding process, but I want to stress, don't get lazy with it either, guys, because I think a lot of people look for that like that secret pill, you know, the 1-2 solution. But I have seen a lot of success using Reptilinks with all of my animals. Someone had said monitors. They wanted to feed their monitors. This you could really feed it to any monitor you have. There's plenty of sizes from, like I said, I'm feeding it to my Ackies, and then they make sizes big enough to where I would even feed it to my my adult Nile monitor. So what is your code? It literally just red zone. I think it's all capitals. Just put red zone. You'll see it when you check out. It'll ask you for a code or something. Make sure
The
you.
only monitors that I would be careful about, and it would be the same if you're feeding like processed meat, would be some of the arboreal species of monitors, because they're tried and true, highly insectivorous. But yeah, any of the other pretty mainstream kept monitors, like they're going to do wonderfully on our products. And you know, that's just an exception with some of those real gracile, the
Probably
prehensile
Savannah
tailed
monitors
arboreal
too. Don't
monitors.
be overfeeding your Savannah monitors with links. If you do, you know, use them more often than not. Try to use the same one for your bearded dragon that has insects and greens. I'm pretty sure the greens are just fine for your Savannah monitor. But that's another animal that people just love to overfeed. Like they'll eat anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had a great time. Is there anything you guys want to add that I didn't ask, or so it's not reptiles, guys? It's just red zone at the checkout for the code. It's just red zone.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is, you know, we get a lot of the most common email we get is like, can I get a sample or can you send me just one pack? And it's like, we'd love to,
One
but
link. I want
one
one
link. Yeah.
link. Oh.
So on
Yeah.
that note, do you guys
Yeah.
do any shows or anything? Is there anywhere like I know you guys are literally on the opposite sides of the U.S. of each other right now, but is there
Right.
anywhere like shows locally, anywhere that people could come to you to see your product, or is it just
Yeah,
online
so
right now?
well, we have we do like several pet stores carry our products, and so you can go to the store locator on our website and see if there happens to be a store near you. There's not a ton, so most likely you won't find one near you, but there are some out there, and you know, Snake Discovery has all of our stuff, and then
Yeah,
we're
we used to have a Sin City show here locally to me. Ryan Dumas worked at the Cincinnati Zoo, and he was at the Newport Aquarium. He represented our products there very well for, I think it was 2 or 3 years, but he just got too busy with work. So unfortunately, we don't have anybody at our local show here in the Cincinnati area anymore. But I used to vend at Tinley Park. Um, and we're gonna set up there
Yeah.
pretty soon. It's just we haven't had tables. I haven't had tables there for a while, and it's pretty tough to get in there. Sometimes I guess they really do give priority to people that are supplying food rather than selling actual reptiles. But that's on our agenda to get to Tinley Park, and then of course Daytona is definitely. We like to do some of the bigger shows. We've had a lot of people do local shows, but it is very hard for us to keep track of who's still active and who's not. So unfortunately, we can't say for sure who's doing what, at this given time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's our plan to be at more shows. Until then, really, what we do is we have a money back guarantee. So, if there's something wrong with the products, they're not eaten by your animals, give us a call. We'll try to work through it. If we can't figure it out, then we refund up to $100 of the order. So it just makes more sense to send, the actual quantity that you should send if you're sending frozen on dry ice rather than trying to send a sample or something. It's not good for the environment, and it's really hard to do technically to send low volume of food because it's harder to keep frozen. And it's just when you think about the cost of shipping, we only charge a customer a fraction of what we actually have to pay. So, a lot of times shipping is like $19 to most places, or free for over $200. But the actual cost to us, is like $10 to $15 worth of dry ice. There's a $15 FedEx UPS charge. There's a $5 for the insulated box. And so those shipping charges just stack up, and no one wants to pay a high shipping rate, so we try to keep those low. But in order to keep those low, we had to sell a certain amount of product, or else we're losing money on the deal. So we'd love to be able to mail small quantities, but once you receive your order and you realize what goes into the packaging and the care that goes into getting frozen food to your door, you'll realize why we can't sell those small quantities. So
Yeah, mine came on a pretty warm day, and it could have stayed outside for a whole nother day. Like, it was plenty of ice in there. My wife didn't even, honestly, she didn't even put it in the freezer.
yeah.
I think one of you guys had reached out to me and was like, "Hey, your stuff's supposed to be showing up today," and I was like, "All right, cool." And then I had called my wife. I was like, "Hey, we got Reptilinks coming today, so be on the lookout." So she saw it, she brought it in, and then just left it on the table. And I was like, "Hey, did you put those away?" When I was on my way home from work, and she was like, "What? No, I didn't know how to put them away. You just told me to bring them in." I was like, "Well, yeah, it's food, it's meat." Like,
Yeah. We try
so
to pack them with 1, but more likely 2 days of extra transit with dry ice. So we definitely try to overload on the dry ice, and then especially through the pandemic and stuff. I mean, FedEx and UPS have just been neck and neck with who's worse, but uh,
yeah.
generally boxes are transiting on time now, and if they're delayed, they're only delayed a day. So we try to add enough ice so that if it sits for a day or two past when it's supposed to arrive, it'll still be frozen. So yeah, we put a lot of care into packaging those boxes.
Use ice packs as well to get you another 24 hours if you do run out of ice, which is a nice feature too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if you guys are, obviously you ship to Canada, yes?
Nope,
Not
not
yet.
yet.
All right. So just in the U.S. right now, if you guys are in the U.S., you can get Reptilinks shipped to your door. Go on their website, use